So one of the things I've talked about is don't just accept the numbers you're presented with at face value. Dig into them a little bit and see if you can get some context. Let's look at this in the case of another global warming article. Alarm bells ring as Greenland ice loss causes 40% of 2019 sea level rise. The kilometers thick ice sheet that covers Greenland saw a near record imbalance last year between new snowfall and the discharge of meltwater and ice into the ocean, scientists have reported. A net loss of 600 billion tons was enough to raise the global watermark 1.5 millimeters, about 40% of the total sea level rise in 2019. To put that in perspective, 1 millimeter is about the thickness of a dime, an American dime. So about 1.5, it's about the height of the thickness of a dime. That's what sent all these alarm bells ringing. The Greenland ice sheet, which until the end of the 20th century accumulated as much mass as it shed, holds enough frozen water to lift the world's ocean by 7 meters, which is about 23 feet, and that's about the height of a 2-story house. Almost as alarming, however, as the ice sheet's accelerating disintegration are the forces driving it, the authors reported this week in the Cryosphere, a peer-reviewed journal published by the European Geosciences Union. More than half the dramatic loss in 2019 was due not to warmer than average air temperatures, but rather unusual high-pressure weather systems, somehow that are linked to global warming. They don't specify how. Now look at this bit of rhetoric. These anti-cyclone conditions blocked the formation of clouds over southern Greenland, causing unfiltered sunlight to melt the ice sheet surface. Fewer clouds also meant less snow, 100 billion tons below the 1980-1999 average. Okay, first of all in this paragraph, anti-cyclone, I had to look this up because I didn't know what it meant. And these anti-cyclone conditions, anti-cyclone means calm weather. So they could have just said these conditions with very little wind and very calm days. That's all it means. And then 100 billion tons less snow sounds like a lot, but then Greenland is 160,000 square miles. It's enormous. So spread that out over that entire island. Okay. It's snowing less. And I did look it up. It has snowed less. But here in Washington State, it's snowed a lot more. Very often we get none. I actually had to buy a snow shovel. It was terrible. So, in addition, the lack of snowfall left, you've heard this, darkened soot-covered ice which absorbs more heat. Oh no. These atmospheric conditions are becoming more and more frequent over the past few decades, said the lead author, Marco Tedesco, a scientist. This is very likely due to the waviness in the jet stream, a powerful high-altitude ribbon of wind moving west-east over the polar region. It is twice the global average, we're told. Average temperatures in the Arctic region have risen 2 degrees Celsius since the mid-19th century, so about 1850. About 150 years, the temperature has changed by 2 degrees. Okay. Climate change, in other words, may make these destructive high-pressure atmospheric conditions more common. Notice they always qualify it, it may. So much for settled science. It may make it worse. Well, do you know or do you not? Now this is interesting. The impact of these high-pressure systems are not factored into climate models used by the UN's IPCC to project the impact of global warming on Greenland ice sheet, the study warns. So they're making this to scare you more, like they haven't even factored this in. But I look at this and I think, wait a minute. My weatherman on Channel 7 talks about high and low pressure systems to give me the 5-day forecast. You're telling me these multi-million-dollar computer models on these supercomputers that could supposedly predict what's going to happen over the next 80 years don't even look at high and low pressure systems? So climate models are leaving things out, 1. They're leaving very important things out, 2. And right here they're saying that their models are wrong. I'll link to the study below where a Finnish study that was corroborated by the Japanese showed if you factor clouds into the climate model, all the evidence for man-made global warming disappears. So they're leaving out clouds, they're leaving out high and low pressure systems. It's like, what do these things actually even contain? And this research associate says, it is likely that we are underestimating the future melting by a factor of 2. So you have a tool, a measuring tool that might be off by a factor of 2. Can you imagine if you tried to build a house with tools that bad? It's off by a factor of 2, so not only are your models wrong, they're completely useless. Notice here this quote, he isn't saying, we have determined through the studies, he's just saying it's likely. He's saying, I believe, I think. That's not scientific. Through the 1990s, Greenland ice sheet was roughly in a state of balance, but annual mass loss has risen since then. So 30 years we've seen fluctuations, okay. In all, Greenland has shed about 4 trillion tons of ice between 1992 and 2018, causing the mean sea level to rise by 11 millimeters. So that's about a stack of 10 dimes. That's about $1 worth of dimes, just to get that in perspective. So 30 years and $1 worth of dimes. And the IPCC has forecast that global sea level rise could top a meter by 2100, so that's about 3 feet, due mostly to discharge from the ice sheets on Greenland and West Antarctica. But I wonder, if they admit that their models may be off by a factor of 2, who's to say their measurements aren't off by a factor of 2 as well? Instead of being a stack of 10 dimes, could it be a stack of 5? I mean, if your tools are this poorly calibrated, what can you trust? And if your projections out 80 years, how accurate are those really going to be if all your measurements all over the place are off by a factor of 2? But let's just grant them their numbers. Let's take a look at this and put it all in perspective using the numbers that they themselves provide. I found a 2-story house here. So let's see. And so if all of the ice in Greenland melts, this is how high the wall of water is going to be. It's really terrifying here. Look at all that water coming at us. Now, to put that in context, let's go and let's look at how much the sea levels have risen since the 90s here. Oh, gotta get down low. I don't know if you can see. This is 10 dimes. That's about your 11 millimeter sea level rise right there. And by 2100, this meter is about the height of this chair here. So you can see, if man does nothing, just how much water could rise. The top of that, you can see the top of that chair right there. But this is what we've actually seen. And the alarming rate, setting off the alarm bells, is right here. That is how much the sea level rose that set off the alarm bells. About 1 dime. Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff we're seeing here.